Welcome to another video by Kilio Corey's Fish Room. Today we're going to be talking about breeding fish for profit, or as some people put it unrealistically, how to get rich breeding fish. We're going to share our experience and opinions that we gathered over 30 years of fish keeping and our understanding of the fish keeping industry. After people get experience keeping fish by accident or on purpose, people start breeding fish, and the question that they end up asking to themselves and the others, what can I do with the fish that I'm producing, and can I make money selling the fish that I breed? And it is a valid question to ask, but it is important to clarify your goals. Of course, the fish we buy are not cheap, so it is natural to think that once we breed some fish that we should be able to sell them and make some money as well. But clarifying your goals is really important. First, are you breeding for money, or breeding is happening in your tanks and you're just trying to find new homes for the fish that you're producing? And if you're breeding for money, why are you breeding for money? That is a really important question to ask yourself, just to clarify your goals. Do you just want to offset some of the running costs of your hobby? Are you trying to make your hobby cost neutral? Are you trying to get new stock and species by selling some of your own stocks, or still keeping it in with that cost neutral idea? Are you aiming to make a little pocket money on the side? Or are you thinking about it in a bit more serious way, where you want it to become a secondary income stream, or you want to go all out and make fish breeding your primary income? Basically, everything we're going to talk about applies to not just breeding fish, but breeding invertebrates like shrimp, but also growing aquatic plants as well. So some of these points are going to be relevant to those different types of organisms that we keep in our fish tanks. Your goals will influence the species you breed, because if your goal is, for example, to make a secondary income stream or to be primary income, the species you'll keep to breed to on sell is going to be quite often different to the ones that you would keep if you're just trying to offset some of your running costs of the hobby. First important point is to identify your buyers. When you breed the fish, which is quite tricky in of itself, but when you breed the fish, who are going to be your buyers? Are you going to try to sell the fish you breed privately, either in person or online? Are you going to aim to sell to your local aquarium store or local aquarium stores in the city you're in, or cities closer to your location? Or are you aiming to sell to the wholesale distributors? Identifying your buyers is really important, because again, it will shape and redirect what you want to breed and the numbers and what you want to do. For example, as private sales, it really helps if people know you. Just joining online forums and a week later trying to sell a whole heap of fish would have only a certain amount of success. But if people have known you on the online environment or in person for months and years, when you do have some fish available, people already know a little bit about you, they trust you and your fish keeping abilities, and quite often they already know the sort of fish that you are breeding, and you might end up having already a interested group of people happy to buy your fish. So it is important to be out there if you're aiming and hoping to sell your fish, even though putting random ads in online or other forms like Gumtree and etc. in Australia works. When people know you, the fish move a lot quicker. Selling to local fish stores, your aquarium stores, is not as straightforward as you might initially think. Local aquarium stores have to mitigate risk versus gain that they might have by getting fish from local breeders. So first and foremost, the local aquarium store needs to know you. If a random just walks in and says, I have X many of this type of fish, 99% of the time the aquarium store is going to say, sorry, we are not interested. So establishing relationship with the store owners and managers and the staff, them knowing you, you being actually their customer, is an important aspect if you ever intend on selling some of the fish that you breed to the aquarium stores. And also from a aquarium store point of view, they have to trust that when they buy fish from you, they're not going to buy diseased fish. So them knowing you and your fish keeping practices and part of your husbandry skills, as it were, that you have nice healthy fish, helps local aquarium stores make that decision. On the other side of the coin, obviously locally bred fish are kept and bred in the local water conditions, the water that comes out of the tap. So it is a selling point, but there are a lot of negatives with it, meaning the store owner or the manager needs to know how you keep your fish, how you look after them. There are no diseases in your tanks, because it's ultimately so much easier just to buy the fish from wholesalers. And the last, if you're intending to sell to wholesale distributors, again, they would need to know you. You can't just contact them out of the blue and say, I have couple of hundred of X, would you like to buy it? It works some of the time, but them knowing you as a fish keeper and a fish breeder do help with the process. So not when the fish are ready to sell, but a lot earlier, getting in touch with wholesalers. I'm not really encouraging everyone to go and contact wholesalers, by the way, but them knowing you and the sort of fish you keep, sometimes actually wholesalers will contact you directly for the fish. So identify your buyers and develop and grow your relationships is probably the most important tip that I can give if you're intending to breed fish and aim to on-sell the fish to other people. One of the biggest mistakes that people also make initially is thinking that if they buy a expensive pair of fish, when they breed them, they'll be able to sell the fish for what they bought for. So they go, I paid $200 for this pair of fish. I breed them. Now I have 20 that we have grown, $100 each. That's $2,000. That's not really how that works. And the other thing to keep in mind is high cost fish have low turnover and low cost fish have high turnover, meaning it's easier to sell $1 fish 1,000 times than to sell $1,000 fish multiple times, because the more expensive a fish, it means it's rare, it probably has challenges in keeping and growing it to size, it might have special water and dietary conditions, or it's just purely quite expensive. And so there are only so many people willing to pay or see that value in that fish for that fish to be $1,000. But there are many people who would be more than happy to buy a fish that's worth just $1, even if they're just starting, because it is a lot more affordable. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of aquarium stores do sell a lot of what they call bread and butter fish. Those are fish that are relatively low cost and sell well, and they are usually the low cost tetras, guppies, and other liberas, goldfish, etc. And if you talk to any aquarium store owners and managers and the people who work there, their bread and butter fish is basically the bulk of their aquarium fish sales, unless the store is known for carrying certain group of fish, like some catfish or cichlids and etc., where people specifically go there for that type of fish. But most aquarium stores would be selling a lot of tetras, guppies, other liberas, and goldfish to people who are just beginning or have sort of simple community tanks. And those are the fish that sell all day, every day, week after week, where each aquarium store would be buying hundreds of guppies and tetras and etc. each week. Because of the turnover, the more specialized fish like discus and etc., they would be selling fewer. I'm talking about general aquarium stores. They'll be selling fewer of those compared to guppies. Of course, there are specialized discus stores and etc., where if you're after that type of fish, that's where you go. So when you're trying to decide what to breed, a bread and butter fish might be the better way to go. And here is where people start to make a big error in their maths. And this is basically a simplified version of the maths that people do. And they start, counting all this money they're going to make based on what they're going to breed. Imagine you have a single female guppy, and guppies give birth to anywhere from 20 odd to up to 60 plus fry per birth, and they give birth every 27-28 days depending on the temperature. Let's, to simplify, assume that you have one female guppy, and in the first month she gives birth to 30 fry, and in the second month the same female guppy gives birth to another 30 fry. Now you have 60 fry. The numbers are increasing. That's very encouraging. And in the third week, there is the same female gives birth to another 30 fry, and you're up to 90 fry already, 90 fish. This seems too easy. On the fourth month, the same female gives birth to another 30 fry, and now you're up to 120 fry and juvies growing. And let's assume on this fourth month we retire this female and no longer interested in getting fry out of her. On the fifth month, let's say 1/3 of the fry that was born on the first month were females, and there were 30 fry on the first month. If you recall, on the fifth month, now we have 10 females giving birth to 30 fry each, and now on the fifth month we actually have got 300 fry in that month. And on the sixth month we have another 10 fry that have grown to be young adults from the second month, and on the sixth month we now have 20 females giving birth to 30 fry each, and now we are up to 600 fry in that month. And on the 7th month, we have 30 females giving birth to 900. And on the 8th month, we now have 40 females giving birth to 1,200 fry per month. And people do this sort of maths in their heads and go, wow, I'm going to breed so many fish and going to make so much money. And imagine this formula was just for one female. Imagine you started with 5 females. If you do this sort of maths, you're just going on the 8th month, I could be producing 6,000 fry. In theory, that math seems accurate, but in practice that doesn't really work like that, because there are a lot of considerations. And this sort of incorrect maths is also done by people who breed L number catfish or cichlids, etc. People buy a $600 pair of L number catfish and they're going to make thousands of dollars over the next short while when they breed the fish. In actual fact, that ends up being a lot harder. So the thing to think about also is the cost of production. So time to grow the fry to a sellable size, because they're going to occupy space, eat food, and use other resources, and also holding costs. Any fish that you end up keeping in your tanks that you couldn't sell is going to be taking space that you could have been using to grow the next lot of fry. So time to grow and being able to offload them is really important. The equipment you use and the cost of that, the running costs, your water, electricity, your feeding costs, like the food you're feeding, your contingencies are important, like when you have power outages, are you going to invest in generators and etc. In case of a total tragedy where you lose all your fish to a disease or something else, what are your contingencies in terms of coming back? One way to do it would be some of the harder to come by fish that you breed. You might want to give them to a few friends and other breeders that you know and have good relationship with, so that if you happen to lose that species from your breeding tanks or facility, depending on how big you go, you're able to get those fish back to repopulate your tanks. And of course, we're not even talking about the challenges of breeding itself. Growing fish to adult size, getting the fish to breeding condition, being able to get the fish to spawn, getting the eggs to hatch, once the fry hatch, to get them to start growing, getting them to juvie sellable size, are all challenges for a fish breeder, and it takes a lot of time and effort and resources to grow the fish. And that's why quite often you'll see at the aquarium stores a species of fish at 2.5 centimeters is a lot cheaper than if the same fish at 4 centimeters, because all those costs to get the fish to grow, the time, the feed, and the space that they occupy ends up adding to the cost of producing that fish. So deciding the fish you want to breed and knowing the time it takes to be able to get them out of your tanks and being able to move them either privately to your aquarium store or to wholesale is also a really important part of the equation that you should be thinking about. And it is important that you're thinking about all of these before you just go and decide, I want to breed fish for profit, because to be honest, anything that you enjoy doing, when it starts to be money oriented, it gets the shine of it. Really, for us, we breed a lot of fish, but our goal is never to make money. We're just breeding fish because we are interested in the species we are keeping and want to see the whole life cycle. And for us, breeding the fish assures us that we're giving the fish that we are keeping the best conditions for them to live in the tanks, and if they're really happy and content and really good condition, fish go ahead and breed. And that's basically the primary reason why we breed quite a lot of fish. And we are not really that interested in making money from breeding fish. And of course, we end up having surplus juvies that we raise, that we swap with other breeders that we know and sell sometimes. But our goal is to enjoy the hobby and not worry about whether, how much money we will make by breeding X number of this and that and the other. And we breed fish that we like, not thinking about how much the fish itself is worth. So in our fish room, that's why we have quite a few rare species as well as very common fish as well, because the perceived value, dollar value of the fish is not important for us at all. But as we conclude this video, in summary, know the fish that you're intending to breed, figure out who and where you're going to sell your fish, and if there's a market exists for that fish, because some fish are also go through sort of surges and ebbs and flows of popularity, like cichlids and rainbow fish and some other fish for a period really popular, and then there are periods where they're not as popular. So make sure that you're aware of those cyclical nature of popularity of some fish as well. And overall, just enjoy your fish keeping, and hopefully you'll be able to keep your fish keeping a enjoyable hobby and not worry too much about the money aspects of it. Of course, fish keeping is an expensive hobby, so trying to offset some of the costs are important for some people. And if that is you, hopefully this video gave you a few pointers to think about. Thank you for watching this video by Kilio Corey's Fish Room.